be hitting the button like hello.
Hi. I mean, I've never done it before. I can try next time. Hello, everyone. We're just discussing how the live button, how
Work.
responsive it is, how quickly.
How was real? Yeah, yeah. Unlike some of our emails to you or text messaging, how responsive are they? Yeah, notice there is a slight delay. Like when you hit it on the zero mark, it's still like 3 or 4 seconds after, right? So, um, and does it really matter?
It's a good thing we don't have a set opening, right?
Like music or like that to that, you know, it's like
All of it. Like we're okay we being caught in the middle of a sentence. We're okay just smiling. We're okay just saying hi. We're okay just be discussing how the live button works. It's very organically coming together.
that's pretty well about it, isn't it? It's and you know what? I kind of like it that way. It's like because we started off sort of saying yeah, like we really didn't want to have a lot of structure and
Oh, we accomplished that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's but it's no, I love the free flow. I love the spontaneity. I love the just having lightness. I mean, there's so much seriousness going on, right? Not to diminish what's going on, but um, it's okay to be light. And no pound on your name. I mean, yeah, I mean you have to be light.
I didn't even think about it.
I think it's all I like it's the perfect Zen last name.
Yeah, and inherited that last name. I mean, they're all inherited, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I've kind of stuck with mine a bit, unless I want to change it. But so how have you been this week? It's been a whole week.
Pretty good, pretty busy. Kind of trying to like just get used to the fact that one day was snowing, the next day 75 degrees, one day
Really?
was 9 a.m., and the next day was 10 a.m. Like, there's been a lot of changes in terms of time and weather. So it's kind of hard to adjust. I'm currently sweating through my shirt, which is meant for mid-season, but it feels more like it's the Caribbean in here, like temperature wise. So
Yeah.
and I went on a hike this weekend wearing my ski outfit.
And how did that all work out?
It worked out perfectly. It was like 30 degrees, which is like, it was like zero, a little
Yeah,
below zero. It
yeah,
had snowed the night before. I went upstate and there was some snow flurries in the city. The day before was like a rainy mixed snow thing. Every now and then you look outside, you're like, you gotta be kidding me, it's snowing. Like it's just
yeah.
kind of weird, right? It's like a joke. And then when I went upstate the next day, it was snow on the ground. It was like, oh, there's fresh snow.
We certainly have been having. I mean, yeah. I mean, this has really been the kind of a week of changes, right? It's like
Mhm.
that the time change has thrown so many people. I have friends um, in Australia and in Europe and like in on GMT time, Greenwich, and
Yeah,
and they don't change until a couple of weeks from now. So everything's all in a turmoil for a
yeah,
couple of weeks, and then we realign again. And then, of course, if you're having a guest from the other side, they kind of like, oh, did you have a time change? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed our appointment.
yeah. I mean, and the other way around happens too in November when we are the ones that change after they change. Because
Yes.
they change before we do, then I miss sessions. I just missed, like I'm like, what is happening? Where are all these like events
Oh,
on my calendar on the wrong time? you know?
yeah, yeah. It doesn't
Yeah.
change either, and so much thinking that goes on over like a lot like stressful thinking, like like or extra thinking, if you want to call it that, right?
Yeah.
Um, and well, I guess we'll see because I know it's been a big event for you guys in Congress. I guess they had a vote about
The Senate, yeah.
yeah
We'll
the
see if,
Senate. Yeah,
yeah, if the House will back him up. I
Yeah.
don't see why not. They've been discussing it. It's one thing they can agree on. Let's just get it done. There's not much agreement from, in terms of Republicans and Democrats. So it's like, if we can all agree to this. Can we
Yeah.
just do it?
Yeah. 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 And I love the term. I'm just trying to think of it because I thought it was a really unique way of not saying daylight savings time. It's sort of like, oh, what were they? Do you remember what they called it? It was,
No.
yeah, it was sort of like
So,
saving preservation or something,
oh,
or
no, I
or,
didn't see that
or
one.
light preservation. Oh well, we'll figure it out.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna preserve light.
I mean, I think it's, you're either going to preserve it on the end of your day or at the very beginning of your day. It's just that early. It only
Yeah,
preserves it for a few. And at
yeah,
like 4 p.m.
yeah,
in January, frankly, I think we can all agree it would be really nice to have a little more light,
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
right?
pretty dark. I mean, and so I have been asking some of my clients, what is their preference, because so much of it is personal, right? Would you sooner have a longer evening of light or more morning light?
It's not really more morning light. It's like 5 a.m. light.
Well, if you're up at 5 a.m., it's nice to see the sunrise.
Okay, but the average person is likely to be asleep.
Are you
Let's be
saying I'm not
honest.
average?
Listen, I like the whole 5 a.m. club deal too. I try to wake up really early as well. And I see that as a really early rise, to do my
Yeah,
meditation, to do, like journaling, whatever it is that I want to do. I don't need much light.
yeah. As a matter of fact, most of it, your eyes are closed anyways.
Exactly. But like at 4 p.m., it would be nice to bring my children back home around like 5 and not feel like it's like midnight.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, too funny, too funny. Yeah, no,
I mean, in
I
fact, we started our show where like around 4:30, I would start raising the shades because there was the sunset.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And now it's like, wow, it's like noon
And
at the same exact time.
and it'll be that way for a while, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, yeah, no I mean, I know we did a show on time, but it would be interesting to go back and because there's such an illusion of time. There's such an illusion of time.
So true. Yeah, I agree. And you kind of read my mind as usual because I was like, it's March, like piss, like we're like past mid-March. How did this happen?
or and somebody I was at a group a couple of days ago and they were talking about, okay, so in Australia it's actually tomorrow. Like, get your
Yeah.
head around that, right? And then somebody spoke up and says, if I got them to read the newspaper, I could find out what the lottery numbers are a day ahead of time.
But really, truly, everywhere is just now,
That's
right?
that's the illusion, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We came up with this concept for time, and and it just, and of course we segmented the, you know hours and Central Time, Eastern Time. Yeah, no, it would be a fun program, but it does give you a headache a little bit when you kind of think of abstractly, right?
Okay, everyone, we're just like wrapping our heads around time change here. Forgive us. We are having a little bit of a coaching ourselves session around
Yeah,
how is this feeling for us? It's feeling, a little bit. It's like all things, right? We like it when it's all predictable, right? We know exactly what time it is when the
yes.
sun goes down. Like when you change things up, then you're scrambling that brain a little bit, and it takes a little bit to settle it back down. That's basically what's happening to us.
Yeah, yeah, and your preferences are your preferences and routines are kind of getting out of sort, kind of a thing. And but you know what? In a couple of days or next week or whatever, it's going to be past history again, right?
And your routine.
A new routine. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like, is it November already? Who came up with this concept of time change? Like, this is ridiculous. We should be, all that other thinking that came on a week ago.
Yeah. So true.
Anyways, good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
And this week I thought it was kind of because I get a lot of questions, like because there's a bit of there is some gray area, and there's a lot of misunderstanding between coaching and therapy.
Hmm.
A lot of times, what we tend to do or what we're looking at has this kind of flavor of therapy to it. And so I thought we'd just explore the differences and how we both see it, either the same or different or whatever. Um, and we both have coaching practices, correct?
Hmm.
Um, I don't have well, it's an unregulated field, coaching.
Hmm.
The International Coaching Federation, which was started in quite a few years ago. I'm going to say 20, but I'm not 100% certain. Was started by an individual who wanted to bring consistency into the coaching environment, because um, there was a lot of things going on, and people were bundling this and bundling that and calling it this, and so what he wanted to do was put some guidelines and standards in place, much like, um, and I don't go, my wife does, but and I'm assuming, hairdressing, for instance, is a
Hmm.
regulated industry. I didn't think it was. I just thought, people had to really, go to school, and have a knack for it and a creativity for it, and would get hired or open up their own shop. But I didn't realize that there's actually a licensing, and there's a
Hmm.
certification, and they have a board, and so there's
I
some
had no idea either.
oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
no. So and they have to re-certify every so often. Um, there's a lot of professions, dental assistants. As a paramedic, I had to do the same thing. I had to get so many continuing education, things like that. Now, coaching the doesn't have a regulation, doesn't have an official regulation. Um, and when I say official, I mean something that is put in by law, something
Hmm.
that you must, before you can
In
practice.
order to practice it, yeah, like in order to be a lawyer, you have to
Yeah,
go to law school. In order to be a doctor, you have to go to med school.
yeah,
Yeah, there's nothing such as that.
yeah.
You're
And it's
correct.
and it and in therapy, there is a certification, there is a qualification, there's a CME
There's
credit.
a degree. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a
yeah.
degree. Depending on which field you go into in therapy, yeah. So there is a degree. So coaching, there's a bit of a cautionary note on that, is that not all coaches are created equal. In
Not
that,
all coaches are created equal. Not all coaches do the same things. Not all coaches specialize in the same things.
no,
Um, so it's in that sense is very different. However, while I believe in the freedom that that provides and of expression of really even creative freedom in the field, I think I believe that there are some basics that we should all know
yeah,
in order to become coaches, like basic skills, communication skills, knowledge of, even some psychology of how, how we work as human beings, how the brain works, right?
yeah.
So I feel that that's what ICF, and there's another coaching body that certifies, that's not the ICF. There's another one, I believe.
Okay,
Uh,
I'm not
I
quite.
forgot what it's called, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to like set a standard of
Yes,
basics that
yeah,
everyone should meet in order to become a coach, right? And you're correct that it's not set by laws. So you can or cannot, adhere to it.
Yeah.
However, to become a coach, it would be a good idea if you had some knowledge of how to
Well,
interact in a coaching session.
totally. Like, and so many have gotten into the profession out of, their friends would say something like, "Oh, you should be a coach. You're so good with this and that." But there's a difference between coaching, having that sort of conversation relationship with friends or family members, right? Versus strangers, right? Because for one thing, you've already got a rapport. A lot of what happens in that first dynamic is is not necessarily coaching. It could even look like advice or
I was gonna say, so yeah, you have a good friend that's really knowledgeable that understands certain things. There could be, coaching skills, right?
yeah,
But what really happens in a relationship, in a friendship, is advice giving and advice receiving, advice seeking, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Where that knowledge, it doesn't mean that knowledge is one serve you as a coach. It's just not necessarily the way that works in a coaching environment, in a coaching container.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, just to speak a little bit more about there are a number of certified coaching programs out there. So there are coaching programs that are recognized by the ICF, if that's the way people want to go to, and get a qualification or a certification. And the ICF says there's so many points you get for taking these particular courses. There's so many points that you get for the number of times you spend with clients, the number of hours you
The
spend,
hours, yeah. There's
things like
yeah,
that.
there's like hour requirements, and I'm guessing is the same thing when you become a psychotherapist or a therapist.
Or any a
There's a certain
patient care.
number of, yeah,
Yeah, I have to have so many patient contacts before I'm deemed, to continue on practicing as a paramedic, right? And
exactly.
that all makes sense. Like, it all makes sense. And I do adore the ICF for that. Um, they also have, which I link in from my website, is their standards. So
Mhm.
they have some standards there, like confidentiality standards, things that sometimes we take for granted, but because it's an unregulated field, it doesn't necessarily it won't hold up, if something should go wrong, right?
Yeah, because it's an unregulated field. I feel like people don't know what to expect, and also the word coach is used for so many to describe so many
Oh,
different things, right?
yeah.
Well, what kind of coach are you? Are you like a health coach? Are you a fitness coach? Are you a mindset coach? Like what kind of coach? Are you a business coach? Are you a leadership coach? Like there's so many different types of coaches that do very, very, very different things. So it's a word that's used to describe a profession that has many different shades of gray and black and red, right? It's
Mhm.
um it's just a word that describes it, but it really doesn't. It's not very accurate, I would say, right? What the type
No.
of coach that you're going to be working with is very much what you need to look for when you're looking for, like if I'm looking to become fit, I'm not going to go to a mindset coach. Obviously, I'm going to go and look for a fitness coach, right? I mean, you may need some mindset work, but if I'm specifically looking to bulk up and just build my physique and hit the gym every day, and that's my only goal, that's the type of coach I'm going to go look for.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's important to really understand that the coaches are not all created equal, just even from a standpoint of what they specialize in, and from a standpoint of how they've trained, how deep their training is, whether or not they're certified. I personally don't believe that a certified coach is a better coach than a coach that's been practicing.
No.
Uh,
And you know that from
yeah,
personal
yeah,
experience, right?
firsthand.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And it's the same with the paramedic. Not every paramedic, it's the same, right? Like, uh, and there used to be a joke about, what do you call the doctor that finishes last in his class, or the medical student that finishes last in his class? You call him
It's
doctor,
still a
right?
doctor. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
um, so I mean, so I think what you're pointing towards is understanding. Yes, we're not all created equal, and that some coaches specialize. And you can see that in their websites and how they present themselves. But it's far more important for me, um, is to how's the relationship. And when I first got coached, um, it was did I connect with that person? It really didn't bother me, what their background was, or if they actually were certified or anything like that, which I became interested in, after several conversations with the person. But the initial introduction and the coaching sessions, I was I was more interested, how comfortable was I with that person?
Hmm.
So
It's a relationship. Yeah.
it's all about relationship building, so
Hmm.
that there alone is the key, and I've heard the same uh with therapy. People have gone to therapy.
Yeah,
uh
so sorry if I stop you
no,
for a
go
second. Like
ahead.
I would like to clarify something, right? Because we started really broad. What is coaching and how many
Yeah,
different types of coachings are there? Obviously, we're not sitting here comparing therapy to a fitness coach or
oh,
therapy to a health coach, right?
no, no.
We're comparing what I would say like the big umbrella of life coaching, right?
Yeah,
Correct me if I'm wrong, which
sure.
involves mindset coaching, involves transformational coaching, or different
Okay.
types of,
Number of
right?
things. Yeah,
So which is a little bit more similar to what therapy does, right? It's all about your mindset, your behavior, and your actions in your day to day, right? So it's not specific to health or fitness or whatever, divorce coaching, whatever it is, right? There's different types of coaches.
yeah,
So I just wanted to say that. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, 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 it's cool. And I was just going to say, like, even in the therapy side of things, if a relationship isn't struck, um, not all therapies fit.
100%. You have to interview your therapist,
Yeah,
right? Just like
yeah,
you do with your coach.
yeah,
So yes, I think it will be important to kind of start defining a little bit the similarities and the differences between therapy and coaching, because I feel that often people are so confused by it. And more so, obviously people are more exposed to therapy. They understand what a therapist does. A lot of people have had, I'm not going to say most people because I don't know what the numbers are, but I know
yeah,
a lot of people who have been to therapy at some point,
yeah,
one time or another in their lives, or have had contact with a social worker. They understand what it's all about, right? But coaching, because it's such a new field that it's maybe not as new as we may think, but it's a new field that's getting more and more attention, I would say, lately. There's a lot of confusion around what a life coach, for instance, does, because a lot of people don't have experience with that. And I think even the term life coach comes across a little bit like, do I need someone to tell me how to live my life?
yeah.
Like, what
Exactly.
does a life coach do? Do you just walk around with me and follow me my life? I mean, I've
Don't
heard
do
all.
that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
Don't have time for that, but sure. So it's and there's some stigma attached to it, right? There's some perceptions around it, because I think people do know overall that there's no actual regulation around it, right? So there are people that feel more comfortable with someone who is certified, and there are people that perhaps have had experiences being coached by someone that's not certified, or even someone that is certified and wasn't that good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I just want to say that, because I think that is such a key important point. When you look for a coach, look for someone that fits you. It's just like a therapist, right? Don't don't look at the certification. I'm just going to go ahead and say that,
Sure.
because if the person doesn't have experience, the person doesn't know what they're doing, you're going to sense that in the first session, and it's just not going to be a fit. What is going to happen is you're going to feel resistance and you're going to feel a pull away from the person.
Yep.
Whatever the reason is, maybe you're just not a match. Maybe it's
Yep.
because they're not properly trained and speaking you in a way that comes across, it lands for you, but you're going to know, right? It's that like feeling. It's the same thing
Trust
with
that feeling.
therapists. Not all therapists are created equal and they're not all a match for you.
No.
So, I think that really that is a first step, right? And also, yes, there's a lot of perceptions around, well, if are not certified, I think people think that the certification is a lot more than it actually is, right? So it's not actually like going to, psychology and getting a psychology degree. It's a lot, I believe it's a lot more basic than what a psychology degree puts you through, but it gives you all the tools that you need to have, right? In
Yes.
terms of the basics, the
Yep.
fundamentals that you need
Yep.
to know and understand. What really makes you a great coach is what makes anything great and anyone great: practice, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's really the difference between a great psychologist and a great coach, a great athlete and one that's learning to become great, right? It's not about the theory and the knowledge that they have. It's about how much they've practiced it, how much they've stretched themselves, and how much they have worked with different people and been in situations where they've had to like respond differently and help with different challenges and just show up in different ways, right? So it's about how the coach has grown and experienced coaching, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. And one of the bonuses around coaching, because it has that a bit of a broader um, scope to it in a sense, and it's very future oriented, right? I would say present and future oriented, um, is you're it's more adaptable to what is going on with you in the moment by moment, rather than from therapy. It's usually like there's one thing that we need to focus on, kind of a thing. And and what I find with life coaching is, because there's so many things that are connected, you could say, you could work on money management for instance, and everything seems to fall into place, kind of a thing. So there's a lot of going in broad and then sort of narrow focusing.
I mean,
um
I would say, like, let's just make this distinction to make it clear. Like, therapy is very much focused on the past and really looking
yeah,
at where things stem from and
yeah,
spending a lot of time doing that digging work and looking at where some of your, fears or behaviors or blocks are coming from. So it very much looks at your past, and you spend a lot of time in introspection and really looking at that, right? And yes, while you do talk about your present, is always like reference back to your past, and like there's always like a line being drawn there, right?
hmm
And
hmm
again, different therapists work in different ways. There's been many different ways of,
yeah,
like many different shades of therapy as well, especially nowadays. But for the most part, that's it. And the therapist it's not a very active collaborative. It's very much about you doing this introspective work on yourself and guided, right? Guided by the therapist that points you in the right direction, which is very much like coaching as well, right?
yeah, yeah,
But the difference between coaching is not that we never go in the past. It depends on the coach. Again, I'm the type of coach that will look at what's keeping you stuck. The difference is once we have that awareness and understand it, now we're going to move out of it, right?
hmm
It's a lot more active, it's a lot more collaborative, right? I'm here to support you as a coach and help you get out of this. What can you create, and how can I support you in creating this plan
yes,
or the tools that are going to serve you? Here are some ideas. This is what has worked for me. This is what I found effective in my clients. Test it out, see if it works for you. So it's very active. Like we understand where the problem is, we look at it, we see where it comes from, because that piece of awareness is crucial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until we have that awareness, we're not going to be able to move out of things because we're going to go into avoidance, we're going to go into um, denial, we're going to go into just it's just going to come out in different ways, right? So until we look at that piece and have the awareness and understand where it comes from, we're not really going to be able to shift things significantly or permanently. We're going to shift things temporarily, right? So I believe that it's important to look at the what's in our past or what is keeping us stuck so that we can move out of it. But then it's a very active, let's move out of it, let's stop rehearsing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I feel like sometimes therapy, as beneficial as it has been for me personally in my life, I feel like I can really speak to this because I've done, my gosh, like 10 years of therapy in a row, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was very, very helpful because I understood so much about myself and about my life. But at some point, it just kept me in this story, just
Yes.
kept me in this story and in this identity that while I understood it, stayed my identity, right? I didn't necessarily give me tangible tools to get out of it,
No.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas coaching comes in and actually helps you get out, right? It's a much more active type of work that you do. I think the two could really go hand in hand,
Oh, they
right?
do. Yeah. And
Yeah,
in a lot of places, some of my clients are in active, in therapy, and get coaching also, right? And they find beneficial aspects in both areas, right?
both. Yeah,
And the experience and the feedback that I do get, um, is they do like coaching from the point of view. It seems more like forward thinking. It seems like there's progress happening, because of this non sort of past digging back all the time. Like let's so they have to relive a lot of things over and over again. Where it's like, okay, no, we know that. Like what really is next, and let's work towards that, right? And
I mean, as coaches, there's accountability, there's action steps. There's like, okay, all right, we see it, we get it, this is what we can do about it. Go do it,
yeah,
right? I'm here to hold you accountable. You said
yeah,
that you want this change, you said that you want to get out of this place of stuckness, and we have determined that these are the steps that you're going to take in order to come out of it, or at the very least you're going to try and see if it works, and if it
yeah,
doesn't, we're going to readjust the plan, right? So
absolutely. And that's an important that's important in the coaching relationship. It's accountability without the judgment too.
without the judgment, but it's because it's accountability is like, go do the thing you said you were going to do. Give it a try. You're
Yeah.
not married to it.
No.
Give it a try. If it doesn't work, that's why I'm here. You're coming back and we're going to replan this until it does work. Because oftentimes we have these great plans, right? We have figured it out on our own. Then we go do it, it doesn't work, and just we're not resourceful enough, or we don't spend enough time even thinking about, well, what else can I try,
And that's the
we
that
look on the outside, right?
and like
But
and I think you mentioned it before, but it is a very collaborative,
yes,
um relation. Like it's collaborative, where you're not stuck on a treatment plan. Although treatment plans do can be adjusted, but with therapy it tends to be specialized. And if it doesn't work, and I've had people that have gone through different therapists because the first one didn't quite work, so they had to go find another one, and went and try something different. you know um so but there is that collaborativeness, so it's like testing and adjusting. And this is what, when you look at from a sports perspective, or even an executive coach perspective, it's the same deal. Like it's almost becomes a part of the team now.
Yeah, I mean, there's no one's going to give you a magic pill,
No,
right? There's no
there is
magic pill.
no.
We're creating the plan together. I think coaching is very much the way, at least I coach, and I think most coaches aim to coach, is to empower the person
Yes,
to come up with these resources, to come up with a plan, to learn how to be there for themselves and how to stand on their own 2 feet so that at some point you get out of the way. You're basically training the person to do all of the things that you do together to do it on their own eventually. And
exactly.
then, right?
Yeah,
And then they may come back later because they have different goals, they need help in a
yeah,
different way. But the goal is not to stay in a coaching relationship forever.
no,
That being said, that being said, because I have had people ask me, it's a quick fix. It's not a quick fix. If you're thinking in terms of quick fixes, go back to the drawing board and do a little inner work. Go see a therapist for a minute. Do a little inner work, because if you're looking for a quick fix, then you're not really serious about changing.
no,
Change is not a quick fix.
no.
Just to change anything in our brains, it takes a minimum 21 days. So there's no such thing as a quick fix. But it is about like kind of gauging and testing and trying different things together. And with you have a cheerleader, you have someone that's like really there to support you, to pick you up when you don't feel well, when you feel like defeated or you lose momentum, to remind you of your strengths, to remind you, to remind yourself of your strengths, and just really be there for you, to do this with you, like team play,
Yeah,
like teammates, like you were saying.
and and I know we have slightly different approaches, but with ultimate the same goal, right? Is that it's to get what the client really wants, right? And yeah, I tell people, you hired me to fire me because as much as we might develop and create a friendship, the coaching side of things is really designed to be temporary, right? And yeah, there's some long-term coaching relationships I've heard, but they're not like we're meeting every week. It's like we're touching in, we're touching in.
They're certainly, hopefully, not aiming at the same exact goal.
No, 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 no. If
Right?
we're talking about the same thing 20 years later, we've got an issue here.
Which and this is I don't know how to word this to where it doesn't come across as criticism towards therapy. That can happen in therapy, that you stay in the same place for a really long time. And in my opinion, and I feel like I can really speak from a place of experience, I think that does come from that rehearsing, from constantly revisiting your past and your trauma and what has brought you here and how you feel about it, like constantly being in this state of analyzing versus action, right?
Yes.
Like, well, what can I do? And the other difference I would say is I obviously got to know my therapist of 10 years well, but it was over 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not that much exchange in terms of really knowing too much about your therapist's life, unless you have literally seen them for so long. Um, so it's a very different type of relationship in that sense, because at least, again, different types of coaches are going to do things differently. But I'm very open about my experiences, about where I've been, what I've been challenged with, where some of the things that I put out there come from, and they are all from my experience, because I don't believe in coaching anyone on things that I haven't accomplished myself or overcome myself,
It's a
right?
it's a it's almost like a Me Too thing, right? Because
A little bit,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
because you might have, from again, like we're not bashing or saying there's anything wrong with therapy. Everything has a place. It's just, with my experience and what I've heard from others, it you know you're kind of, they have a technique, and if the technique works, great. If it doesn't work, well, then you got to look for something different. um, where we're not necessarily tied to anything in particular, because we know that what the client is looking for is in the middle already. So we're already starting with a base, and this is why I've got my Unbroken Neuro project. Is I start from a base of, you're not broken. where in therapy you go in with something that needs fixing, in the sense. So they're going in there looking to mend,
Yeah,
heal,
yeah.
or fix.
I'm going here because there's something wrong with me. And we could really argue even how much uh, perception
Yeah.
conditioning there is around therapy. It's more widely accepted now,
Oh,
but it
yeah.
used to be like, I'm not a crazy person. I mean, in my parents' generation, it's like you were hiding going to a
Yes.
therapist, right? You were not telling anyone. And that's all perception that has been dismantled. It took a really long time to dismantle it. I think right now it's even like, well, if you go, it's kind of like going to the gym for your brain, right? It's almost like, I feel like in big cities where I live, it's almost like you don't have a therapist. Like it's almost like
New York.
everyone should have, yeah, everyone. Well, who doesn't need a therapist in New York City? Let's just be honest.
Exactly.
And don't tell anyone I said that, but truthfully, right? So it's become more accepted, and we understand. It's like don't make me laugh.
Sorry.
We understand more like that it's about mental fitness as well, right? So I don't want to say mental hygiene or mental wellness, because sometimes when you use those words, it sounds like there's something wrong with you. No, it's just about keeping mental fitness and like keeping in check, right? Listen, if I have the clients that I have that have been to therapists are the best clients, because they are the ones that have the most awareness, are the ones that have the most introspection, are the ones that understand me quicker. They understand where I'm going, right? Because they already know how to point back, right, and look at themselves. So yeah, in an ideal world, if you're doing both, I think you're doing an amazing thing for yourself, right? And at the same time, this also speaks. And then the other thing that I would like to say is that the coaching world takes so much from therapy, right? Like there's so many, like from CBT, from even like ICF. I don't know, like I'm getting, there's so many like therapies have gone out and created their own systems, right? Just like Einstein did.
Yeah.
And as coaches, we draw so much from that. We use those techniques and those tools to coach our clients, because some of them are highly effective. It's just that once we have created the awareness and the understanding, then we kind of move into action. And that's the difference, right? One is much more aimed at creating an understanding and an awareness, and more introspective and really focus on what has been and what has created today. And the other is like, let's just take a look at that. Let's look at what happened, what
Mhm.
has been, what has created today, and now what are we going to do to create this future that we want to create? Like what is our vision? Let's create. We have created the clarity. Now
Yeah.
let's move into action. So it's a much more active type of relationship
It's definitely
work.
going towards what the client future state wants to look like, kind of a thing, right? And knowing that, from my approach, that there is really nothing. You're not broken. There's nothing really to be fixed. It's more about recognizing and remembering, you know what you have already. So there are things called skills, right? Like, there are things in money management, for instance, that are very skill oriented, in right. So yeah, there are skills, and you can do exercises to increase your skill level. But really, what's already built in is more than enough to help anybody move forward when they recognize, oh, I could do that. Sure.
Well, because I think you just pointed to something really fundamental here, like the example that you gave on skill, and I want to put the word confidence next to it, right? I would say that oftentimes people's confidence level may drop because they think it's a confidence issue, but
Yeah.
really it's a skill issue. It's
Yeah.
really like you need to sharpen your skills or acquire the skills to do the thing that you want to do, right? And in coaching, I think we do a very good job at catching that and being like, okay, so your confidence is low.
Yeah.
Now we're not going to go back to your mom and your grandma and your childhood and like
No, no,
how you
why?
felt, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We know that that's a delicate thing for you because your inner child was wounded in this sense. So we're going to pay attention to it, and we're going to look at this situation and look at how can you grow that confidence. Maybe it is inner child work, but maybe it is that you need to go and do the thing that you're trying to do
you need to
more. You
practice
need to
more.
train more. You need to practice more. You need to do this course to learn about it. You know, you need to go hire someone that can teach you. You need to pay someone to do it for you, right? There's many different reasons why we may feel like, confidence fluctuates. It's not, there's no such thing as I'm just a confident person. Obviously, some people are more confident in general, but they're all going to have a place where they're not confident. Like if you come and tell me, come and coach me, I'll be very confident. But if you told me, here's the microphone, can you sing this song for me? I'll shrink like this, this tiny. I'm not confident at all. I can't
No,
sing,
no.
right? I know it's a limiting belief that I have, but like then you will see a very different version of me, right? The version of me that's not confident at all, that feels a little bit shy and feels a
Yeah,
little bit self-conscious, right? So yeah, confidence fluctuates. We use this word so much, but there's no such thing as now I'm a confident person. You can build your confidence in all these different areas of your life. Whereas I feel like if I went to therapy, like I just have no confidence that we would be starting from the history of my life and where this
mhm,
came from, right? So it's different type of work. And again, not that that's not useful. It is very useful. It's just a
yeah,
different approach.
yeah, yeah. And um, when you say the confidence, it's I was a Toastmaster. I don't know if you're familiar with the Toastmasters group. It's all about public speaking,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and I mean it's been around since 1932 ish or something like that. So and it was designed to increase people's confidence in public speaking. So it's not about giving you confidence; it's about increasing your skill level because all
In
they do
public
is
speaking.
in public speaking, right?
Yeah.
So it's really about all they do is get you to speak in public in a very safe environment, and it's and as that skill level goes up, people start to realize, oh my goodness, I can actually speak. And I think that for me is the thrill I get from coaching is that
Mm,
people come in at a certain level of and I'll use the word confidence in anything. Um, and after a few sessions, they come back and they go, oh, I do have a voice. Oh, I can actually do that. But there's this, yes, it's not like, the old crossing your arms. I remember, right? It doesn't feel comfortable, but that's okay. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Just because it feels uncomfortable doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's just that, yeah, you just need a little bit
it's
more
just
practice.
that the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it.
That's what ends up happening, right? It's like I can't draw a straight line. Well, I bet you could, right? Like how people. So we talk about. So that's the one thing that I've noticed between the difference between coaching and therapy is that we do get a little bit more personal with in our own lives. Like we
In
share
our
more
own
things,
lives, yeah.
right? And
And
therapy
also I feel like we don't box things into,
labels.
yes, as much, right? I mean, you and I especially talk about labels all the time, right? So I'm not a confident person, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I need to talk about my confidence. I need to look into this confidence thing and see where it's going. You very much create, as much as the work is needed, it very much creates the identity of someone that needs to go find somewhere their confidence. I'm not sure where they're looking for it, right? Just and define themselves as I'm lacking confidence, therefore I'm going to, the term shrink, to
Yeah.
figure it out, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of conditioning and perceptions around therapy as well and why we go there. So we sometimes our own perceptions box us into even the results that we may get in therapy, right?
And,
Because
and
if I
and when you're looking, right, if you because like you said, right in the beginning you said awareness, right? So you know that there's something's troubling you in some particular manner, right? And it could be, is therapy the right approach, or should I be looking at coaching, right? Like right now there seems to be a leaning towards therapy because they have a pretty good PR agent, so well,
no,
there's a
but
lot of
I would say there have been moments and there have been like sessions. So there have been moments in my life. I'm going to speak to that first,
yeah,
where
sure,
I don't think a coach could have helped me, right? Where I just needed to feel super safe and be able to just vent and
yeah,
just let it all out in a therapy session. And it took many, 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 many sessions
yeah,
for that to happen, for it to all come out.
yeah,
It depends on how you land in therapy. If you've done therapy your whole life, you don't have as much to like peel off and unload and shed. But if you haven't and you have a lot of stuff that you've been repressing, keeping holding tight in there, yeah, it may not be very useful to go to a coach when all you need is just to be heard and you're not ready for action. You just need to be heard. You just need to pull it all out of the bag and look at it and look at it again and look at it again and look at it again, right? That I think those are the instances where I feel like people benefit more from therapy. That's a safe container where someone is trained to do that. And that typically happens with trauma. It happens with things that are a little bit thicker. It's not about like my confidence in like, you know, public speaking. It's probably something a little deeper than that, maybe a tragedy or a loss or something a little more significant, right? Typically more traumatic events. Then I think that's a good container for you to just go and like really find yourself and like sort it all out over multiple sessions, maybe months of it, maybe a few weeks of it, who knows,
who
right?
knows, yeah, who knows, yeah, yeah. So I put a few bullet points. So let's see if what we covered, the coaching versus therapy thing. So I had focusing on helping people reach a higher level of success or goal attainment. Right, that's from a
In
coaching perspective.
coaching. Yeah.
Therapy usually involves the treating of a diagnosis, coming from the DSM-5, which is the psychology manual of 450 different diagnoses, right? And out of that, you'll have a variety of different treatment plans based on whatever the diagnosis is, right? Um, Coaching will focus on expanding a person's sense of self and their life. So there's that involvement. Therapy deals with the emotional or behavioral difficulties and reducing symptoms of what's coming on. Um, and stop me if you want to enhance
So I would say to this point, because so far as those are completely true points, right? One sound you can already tell that one sounds more medical
yes,
terms, diagnosis, symptoms, your treatments, right?
yeah, yeah,
And the other is a little more fluid. It's a little more like multi-layered. I would call coaching multi-layered because we look at the body. We also do look at the emotions, the mindset, the behavioral, the spiritual, right? You don't
yeah,
often go and like talk about your spiritual level with your therapist because unless it's like pertinent to, what the trauma is, whatever it is that you're bringing on, the approach is it's a little more holistic, I would
holistic.
say.
Yes, I
Yeah,
would. Yeah, yeah,
with
absolutely.
coaching.
Yeah. Trained to so from coaching, you're trained to support the client as they achieve a specific desired outcome. So you're there along the journey. You're there with in the journey. Therapy, there are experts in the medical and behavioral sciences to treat the diagnostic conditions. So you go in with the condition, and then this is what
You
they're
have a way to treat a
yeah,
specific way to treat it based on probably the type of therapy that they
yeah. Oh, yeah,
use.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's so many different types.
So many different.
Um,
Yeah.
coaching coaching focuses on the present to achieve desired future results. So we start with with where you are today. And therapy focuses on past patterns to change present behavior. So it goes into that. Coaching uses personal disclosure as a tool to catalyze and challenge their clients, and therapy tends to keep any personal feelings and thoughts removed.
So that's, I think this is a very key point. This is kind of speaks to what we were talking about, how
Yeah,
it's a very, very much of an active conversation sometimes in my coaching sessions. I know there are coaches that don't speak much, they just ask questions. My approach is a little different. I ask my powerful questions, but I also believe in the relational flow, the interaction
it's more
with
like
the
a
client.
conversation.
It's keeping it very like, I think that's what creates the flow. When it feels like a conversation, when it feels like we're on the same level, when it feels like I get you, I
Yeah,
understand what you're going
yeah,
through. I've been through it. Let me share with you what
yeah,
this, how I went through it, or like, and it doesn't turn into my session. It's not like we make it all about me, but it really takes a couple words to say, hey, I know that was really tough. I remember when I went through it. I had a really difficult time with that. So
yeah.
I get it. It's really difficult.
And that's
And
what.
this is
Sorry.
what I did to come out of it, right? Let's do this together, right?
And that's why I think both of us sort of like we view the coaching sessions as conversations as opposed to like a session, which seems to be more clinical for me.
There's
Um,
more separation between
yeah,
the therapist and the patient.
yeah,
You're not the client, you're the patient. It's more of a medical,
yeah.
um, so there's more separation. There's not as much you don't have that much view into your
No,
therapist's
no. Like
life.
for me, it's a conversation of tell me how you see it. Tell me how you see
Yeah.
it. I'll share with you my experience and how I see it. And we're basic, and there's no judgment. We're just comparing notes, right?
So yeah, you do share your point of view, and at the same time, you don't ever make a judgment on where the person is at, or like what you think about what they think, or what their plan
No,
is. You always
because
bring it
that's the
back to
reality. That's
yourself.
the reality for them, right?
Yeah.
So because I mean, there's 8 billion different perceptions of life out there right now, right? So, and so, and then sessions are usually anywhere between 30 and 50 or 60 minutes. Um, and with coaching, there's a lot of flexibility between. It doesn't necessarily have to be face to face. It could be done over a phone call.
Mhm.
Zoom has been a blessing, particularly
Yes.
since COVID and things like that. It's for me personally, I like a video Zoom because then I get to see the person and we get eye to eye contact as best
Mhm.
as we can.
Yeah.
um, and it doesn't have to be local, like like me and you are a continent apart. I've talked to people in England and in other places of the world, and it's like they're next door. It's like
Yeah, I mean, I
technology.
find that amazing too. And I do like in person. I have had a client in person and she just loved to be in person.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and that was fine. That worked for her. But what I think the benefits of Zoom are is that we can record it. And this is something that I'm now applying in all my
oh, good.
sessions,
Yeah,
and a lot, then sending the link to the person to watch it again, because when they watch themselves again in the session, they have a whole other
oh,
level of
you're now
understanding.
you
And
really are the observer now. Like,
yes,
oh,
they sit in the observer's seat. Exactly. So I find that to be very powerful. And I'm actually no longer going to offer in person unless, there was a very specific reason why she just wanted
sure.
to do in person. But
Yeah,
that is the way I'm going to do it, because I find the recording to be such a powerful tool in our toolkit,
Yeah.
that I find it important, unless we can record each other live, which would be a little awkward, right?
Yeah, let
Um,
me just well then it's almost like you're in a, let me get this the lamp and we'll face that into your, kind of a thing, and hit the recording button. But yeah,
Yeah, so
no,
there's definitely more. I would say obviously it's more of a modern approach coaching. So it's a little more progressive on some levels. It's a
yeah,
lot less tied into tradition or the way that things have always been done, right? There's more flexibility, less regulation, is not as medical, unless I think health coaches have a very different type of training. But overall it's we use some of the same skills and a lot of psychology knowledge, right? And I always say I would not be the coach that I am today if it wasn't for my therapist modeling that for me for 10 years, right? The way she listened to me, the way she talked to me, the way she redirected me often, right? I would not be the coach that I am today had I not had that training from her. Like, I feel like I paid her all those years to get
yeah, yeah,
trained.
yeah, yeah. I mean, nothing like personal experience.
Personal experience. So, yeah, I think those are, I think, did you go through all your bullet points? Is there
Yeah, yeah,
anything that
no,
we
that was
missed?
pretty well about it. I mean, there's not a, yeah, there is some gray area, but I think fundamentally, it's a personal choice, right? Like if there's something you feel and it looks like a therapist is going to help you, then go to a therapist. Most coaches, including myself and you, we all have free get to know conversations, introductions. You get to experience,
Discovery
uh,
calls,
yeah,
right?
discovery calls. You get to experience a little coaching during them. Um, and and you get to have a little bit of a connection, and if you don't feel a
Get a
connection,
little taste of it, yeah.
yeah.
And I want to say, and I don't want to speak for you, but for me, the
Oh, you
discovery
could speak
call,
for me.
no, for me, the discovery call is also important for me to know if I can work with you,
Well,
right?
absolutely, yeah, you want to
Because
be in the right pay grade, right? It's like there's some things that I will not touch. I'm
I
sorry.
mean, there's some things that may not be within my realm of expertise,
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
there are some certain personalities that are not a match for me, right?
What
It's a matching game a little bit,
it is,
right?
you have to have a person, you have to have
Yeah, and I'm also strict in terms of you have to come in ready to do the work. I think
yeah,
that's a rule that applies for all coaches. I mean, you can't come into coaching if you're not ready to do the work. So
well,
there has to be that piece of commitment on the client's part. I'm committing to doing the work because if you're not doing the work, I can't do the work for you, right?
no, no, but if you're certainly curious, then yeah, give us a call, right?
You know where to find us every
You know where to
Wednesday.
find us. I have all the links and the various ways of getting a hold of us, and even looking at our websites and looking at our Instagrams and things like that. We'd love to connect with you. We'd love to ask if you got questions about it, you want to learn more about it. Yeah, give us a call. We're always here. Leave something on the chat, in the comment section, or drop us an email. And we both have calendar links, so you can even schedule a time. It doesn't cost a cent, you know, and love to get to know you better. So with that,
I'll see you next week. Let us know if you
okay,
have any questions.
absolutely. You take care. Have a wonderful week.
You too.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.